Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Ouma, and today I'm going to take you through the process of performing a data pump import job into an autonomous database using the import wizard straight from the database console. Okay, so before we do that, let's first look at what we've been able to do before. And you realize that in the past, what we've done is that we've been able to show how to perform import jobs into autonomous databases using one, we looked at the Cloud Shell. So we could do import jobs into the autonomous database straight from the Cloud Shell on OCI. The other one that we showcased was basically how to perform the same import jobs into autonomous databases using SQL Developer Import Wizard on your machine. And today what I'm going to do is to basically show you how to perform the exact same process, that is the import jobs, into an autonomous database straight from the OCI console using the import wizard under database actions. So on the screen there, below there, you can actually see that we now have an import button, which you can actually get straight from the database actions of our database console. Okay, so without further ado, let me just take you through the demo of how to do this. Okay, so for us to do this, there are a couple of prerequisites that we need. Of course, we will need an autonomous database, and we will need to have a dump file already stored in some object store on OCI. So on the screen, what you can see is I have a list of buckets here. My bucket that we are going to use for this demo is this bucket that you see here, AKO BK test. If you click on that bucket, you will be able to see that I already have a dump file in here, okay? So this is the dump file that we are actually going to be uploading into our autonomous database. Okay, so this is the first thing that you need. You need to have your bucket and your dump files. Okay, the next thing that we are going to look at is the autonomous database itself. Okay, so let me just click on the autonomous database here. And then you'll be able to see that I have a list of autonomous databases here. So what we'll be using in this demo is the ImpDB, of course, named the import database, just to show you that this is the database I'm going to be using for the import job. If you click on the database, it's basically routine autonomous database. This is an ATP database. And the first thing that we need to take note of is the OSIT here, okay? So let's copy this OSIT because we will be using it later on in the demo, and copy it into some notepad somewhere. Okay, so that being done, we have our basic prerequisites, the database and the dump file, okay? Now, how do you access the button that I just showed you in the slides? You just click on database actions and you click on view all database actions, okay? And that will load the admin jobs and tasks that you could be able to do with this autonomous database. So you just scroll down to administration, and in here you will see data pump, okay? So you click on data pump and you can see the button that I was talking about here, okay? Now this is a new database. We have no jobs completely. So the job that we are going to be executing will actually be the first one, and we should be able to see these numbers change in a little bit, okay? So don't go straight away into trying to click on the button and doing your import jobs, because you will need some couple of privileges and permissions for you to be able to use the import button here. Don't worry, this is a one-time task that you don't need to repeat every time, okay? So I'll just take you through the process of doing that. So let me first of all go back to my database actions here. Okay, and then let me open SQL. I want to execute some statement in our SQL worksheet. And this basically is actually so let me just cancel this. Let me just cancel this for now. So what we need to do is to basically allow the autonomous database to authenticate into OCI services. So this is what we call a resource principle. So it's a scenario where you have resources within your OCI environment authenticating into other OCI resources, okay? So for me to be able to do that from an autonomous database perspective, I need to execute this command. Okay, so let me just paste that there. And this basically allows the autonomous database to authenticate into the buckets that we will be seeing a little bit later on. Okay, so all I need to do is to execute this, and let me just run that statement. Okay. There we go. So our statement has been executed, PL SQL procedure successfully completed, which basically allows my autonomous database to act as a resource principal. So basically I can authenticate this autonomous database to use other services within the OCI environment. Okay, so that's the first thing that you need to do. Okay, then the next thing that we need to do is to create a dynamic group, which these autonomous database will be part of, okay? And then we will be granting policies to that dynamic group to allow the autonomous database to perform certain actions. Okay, so let me just do that. So let me leave this at this point, go back to my database here and click on identity and security. And identity and security, we have dynamic groups. So you click on dynamic groups, and then we will be creating a dynamic group here. So let me just click on create dynamic group. Let's call it imp underscore DG. So import dynamic group. Then you can give it a description, import ADB dynamic group. Okay, and then we are going to attach the autonomous database that we've just seen to to this dynamic group. So how do you do that? By basically executing this command, okay? So I will just add a rule here. So you can see what I'm basically showing this dynamic group is that I'm adding this autonomous database. This is the OCID that we had copied earlier from our autonomous database. So we're basically just saying that we want this autonomous database in this dynamic group. Okay, that's it. And you click on create to create your your dynamic group. So there you go. Our dynamic group has been created, and we've told we've told the dynamic group to house our autonomous database. The next thing that you're going to do is to assign policies against this dynamic group, which will basically be telling the dynamic group what resources the autonomous database here can have access to. Okay, so for me to be able to do that, let me go back to identity. Then I click on policies, and then I click on create policy. So this is what basically will allow the resources in that dynamic group, which in this case is our autonomous database, to perform certain actions. So what actions do we need our autonomous database to perform? Basically, we need our autonomous database to access the dump files in our storage buckets. Okay, so this is what we'll be doing through this policy. So what we need to do here is to give a name to our policy. Let me call it imp policy. Okay, it could be anything that you want. Okay, let me just give it a description. Import policies for the autonomous database in imp DG. Okay, so that's done. And then what we need to do is to add in a few statements here. So I already have the policies. So let me just copy that and paste that here. So what we're basically saying here is we are allowing our dynamic group, which is the import DG, to read buckets in the tenancy, okay? So remember, autonomous database is part of this imp DG dynamic group. So we are basically just saying we need the autonomous database inside our dynamic group to be able to read buckets and to read objects in those buckets in our entire tenancy. So this basically just goes to show that the autonomous database will be able to read the dump files in our object storage, okay? And then you click on create. Let me see. No. We need to create this in our root compartment, okay? And then you just click on create. Okay, so that being done, I think we are ready to now go back to our autonomous database and press the import button. So these are the only prerequisites you need to have. These are one-time setups. You don't need to keep doing this every time you need to perform an import job. Okay, so let me just go back to our autonomous database here. We have our database. Where is it? Yes, we have our database there. Let me just close this, let the database open, and then we go back to our import DB, and then we click on database actions, view all database actions. Okay, and then once that loads, we scroll down to administration in data pump. Let me just do a quick refresh, and then we can now click on the import button. Okay, so we click our import button here. Okay, and then we see the source. So as I mentioned, this is exactly the same thing you'll have been used to on SQL Developer, import wizard. So you have the source, import, filter, blah, blah, blah. So what we just need to do is to tell the wizard where our bucket is. And remember, we had already looked at our bucket being called AKOBK test. So this is the bucket that we are going to pick, and automatically it picks the dump files because this is what we are looking for here. So it picks the dump file that we already have in that bucket. Okay, and then you just click on next. You could give it an import name. So let's just say imp, maybe test. Okay, let's give it that name. And then what are we trying to import? So my export was a schema-based export. So I will do a schema-based import. Okay, so we'll be importing schemas from that dump file. And we are importing everything, data and DDL. And then, of course, we can also have our directory names where, you know, our log files will be stored and things like that. So you just click on, if you've created a directory, it will be listed here. In our case, let me just pick data pump dir. And then I just click on next. So what is happening behind the scenes, you can see it's waiting. It's trying to read the dump file in the object storage, and then it should be able to list our schemas. So as you can see, yes, we have our schemas listed here. So as I mentioned, I did a schema-based export. I only exported the HR schema, and this is what the import wizard can see. So we are going to be importing this HR schema into the autonomous database. Then I just click on next. I don't need to remap anything, schemas. I don't need to remap the schemas or the table spaces. So I'll just skip this part and then just click on options. If I need to thread and have parallel, threads running against this import job, I can actually do that here. But it's a very small import job, so I just need to have one there. You can choose what you want to do should the table exist. So these are things that you'd be very familiar with for anyone who's done data pump or executed data pump jobs, okay? So you can see the log directory has been picked here, and you could even change the name of the log file. Okay, and then let me just click on next, and then I get a summary of what's happening. So I'm reading from that bucket, I'm reading this dump file as the source. I'm importing with the name import test. I'm doing a schema-based import, importing everything using that. I can also have a filter. The filter is the schema that we just picked. Okay. We are doing no mapping completely, and these are the options that we have available. Now you can choose to run this import job immediately, or you could just decide you want to have a look at the PL SQL. So you could actually copy this and paste this somewhere, and you could tweak it and be executing this on some SQL worksheet wherever you choose to actually run this. So this is also possible. For this instance, I'm just going to execute the import job. So let me just click on import and let's see what happens. So behind the scenes, you can see this, the import job is running, and we should be able to see these numbers changing. You can see that import test will be performed in the background. At this point in time, the job is executing, and you can see that the name is what we actually gave it in there. And this is basically the time that we started the import job. So this basically tells you how much time has elapsed. So let me just try to refresh this and see if it is still executing. Yes, so you can see what's happened. It stopped executing, and it is now a completed job, which means we have a green tick here showing that everything has been completed successfully. If you want to view the logs of what we just did, so let's have a look at the logs. You can just click on view logs here, and you should be able to see what you'll be familiar with. So these are the logs that you'd see anywhere where you're doing an import or an export job. You can see that the tables have been imported of the HR schema, and also you have the message that this import job, imp test, and the time here has been completed successfully. So this is how you do your imports using the import wizard and database actions on the OCI console for the autonomous database. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know the next question would be, okay, we can see an import button here. Where is the export button? So this is work in progress, and this should be available very soon. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the demo, and happy data pump jobs. Thank you.